In this video, I'm going to teach you how to creative test in 2024. A lot of people don't know they're actually creative testing the wrong way. It's because they haven't been shown the right way, or they've been shown by people who have only worked on a couple of counts. I am one of the partners at Rifle Digital, and I have a team of 90 people who creative test using 5 steps, and I'm going to teach them to you. We have done $2 million in one day for a brand. We've done several $million hours, and the 5 steps are what my 15 pods all follow. I'm going to show you examples. I'm going to show you how to break it out in the meta ad account, and I'm going to show you the rules we follow when we're creative testing. Let's dive in. All right, so how we creative test in 2024, these 5 steps, they're very simple. Is the first thing you do is we think of things in terms of principles. We believe that good creative testing, that there's principles you should always follow. I'm going to show you these principles, and it's going to make a lot of sense because then I'm going to break down how we think when we creative test, how we identify what we're going to test, because all of that fuels what you actually make for the creative test, and then also how you know if you actually had a successful test. So the first one is know what you're actually testing. That sounds really obvious, but I'm going to show you to what granularity you can take that test. Let me show you. So what kind of wireframe this out for you is what are you actually testing? Because you have to first know what are you actually testing, because then that informs what do you actually learn from that test. For example, with your ad creative, are you testing a static or are you testing a video? If you're testing a static, which is an image, there's many different components that you can be testing. You can be testing the creative headline. You can be testing the image. You can be testing the actual copy within the creative asset, or you can test the ad copy itself. And a lot of people don't break it down like this because you can be testing one variable, or you can be swinging for the fences and just making drastically different creative because nothing's performing. So for example, just inside of a static image, you have these different variables you can actually test. You can be testing the profile name. You can test the ad text, the image, the text in the actual image, and there can be a lot of different text. It can be a headline with sub-headlines, or you can be testing the headline on a website, which honestly I would say is not really one you should be testing. We've done a lot of those, and it doesn't make much of an impact. But those are the different variables you have to work with when you're just testing a static, for example. And then a video. What are you testing in the video? And that's why it's important to know what are you testing, because you need to know what you're testing. Otherwise, you're going to just randomly make crap. And by randomly doing things, you randomly get nowhere. So are you testing the copy in the video? Are you testing the hook, the video elements, the ad copy, the voiceover, the music? Now, you may not need to test each of those variables. You may just be trying to find something that's going to work, that you can scale. But then when you do find the things that scale, you want to know, what are you testing? Because are you making iterations? Are you trying to make something drastically new, a whole new concept? So for example, just inside of a video asset, you have a lot of the same things as a static. You've got the profile, you have the ad text, the video, the assets in the video, that's both the text or any imagery or video inside of the video. And then you have the thumbnail, which is a massive lever that a lot of people don't think about when they're creative testing, or the headline. And again, the reason I'm breaking this down is you need to know what are you actually testing, because then that informs everything else you're going to make after that. And just to go deeper, this is how we think when we're making a video, is that each video is broken down into breaks like this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because even inside of that video, if you have a fundamentally strong video concept, is you could be testing different variables inside the video. You can be swapping out the hook, swapping out the pain or the mass desire you're speaking to. You can be swapping out what you want to show in terms of a product demo. So for example, if you sell a particular type of knee brace, maybe the demo is how it helps you with normal day walking to work, or it helps you on the basketball court, showing the demonstration because it's going to speak to different people. And the reason I'm showing this to you is different parts of a video also help to make videos perform better. So again, what are you testing? Are you trying to make people care more to watch it? Are you trying to make people believe more? Are you trying to build the desire for the product more? Are you trying to satisfy the desire more? So this is how we break down our video bricks, our concepts, because that informs what we're testing. You could also be testing the positioning. So again, what are you actually testing? You have to know what you're testing and what you're going for. Are you trying to position your product? Are you trying to work on a different awareness level? Are you trying to work on different market sophistication because the market and the competitors have matured and you're no longer cutting through like you once were? So now you have to pivot because now everyone is doing and saying the same thing. And that's why that's the first step, is you need to know what you're testing. And the reason why I'm going to lengths to explain this is a lot of people just randomly make ads, and there's not a lot of thinking that goes behind it. There's not a lot of deep research that goes behind it. There's not a lot of intention that goes behind it. And that's why it's important to first know that, because when you have intention, then you can actually have intentional results versus randomly doing things. Probably why your performance and your ad account volatility is all over the place, because there isn't strong intention behind it. And that's what I'm trying to solve for. So know what you're testing is step number one. Step number two, and these are the steps my team follow, is what is your hypothesis? What are you testing? Number one, which I mentioned that. And then why are you testing it? And so when me and my team, when we're making creative, we actually have, because we do creative sprints, and I can make another video about that if you guys are interested, leave a comment. But we do creative sprints. And part of that creative sprint is for every creative concept, we come up with a hypothesis. And a hypothesis is supposed to answer why. Why are you making this concept? And it's not because we're trying to waste time. We're doing it because it informs and it helps you to think through the ad concept. So then again, when you test that ad, you knew what you were testing, why you were testing it. So then you could have some kind of measurable impact in learning from it. A good creative strategist, a good marketer, a good media buyer are ones that are consciously, intentionally learning, documenting their learnings. Because if you don't document it, it's very easy to run the same test 2 months later and forgot you ran that test before. Because we consider ourselves profit scientists. What does a scientist do? They methodically test and iterate on their tests. So that's step number two, is create a hypothesis. And a hypothesis, very simply, should answer why. Why am I making this? Number three is know the difference between themes, concepts, angles, and hooks. So when we're creative testing, we identify what we're testing, hypothesis, but then we know the difference between a theme, a concept, an angle, and a hook, because that informs what you're gonna make. So here's an example. We run creative sprints, and those sprints are every 2 weeks. So what we do is, to help us give focus to what we're gonna test, we theme it. And the reason why is because even in that graph I showed you that on knowing what to test, it can be overwhelming with all the different possibilities of what to test. So by coming up with a theme, these are the theme of concepts, the theme of ads I'm trying to make, it gives you focus on what to actually focus on. For example, well, in our sprint, it's very normal where we'll say, hey, we want this theme of this sprint for this brand to be around making ads for a solution-aware market so we can open up a new market and scale. And maybe, hey, we need to test a new desire, so we want this theme of these ads we make to be around getting rid of mom bloating. Or that we want to make a certain batch of creative and we want the theme to be around the new viral girl math concepts. And so by theming each of the creatives that you make, or we call the batch test, is it just gives focus in what you have to make so then you can really dive deep and make up good concepts. Versus, and this is why a lot of people do this wrong, is just going on ads library, going on floor play, and just finding whatever random ad looks good to you. That isn't intentional, that's just randomly doing things. But by theming it, it gives you the focus you need to go deep. Then we come up with concepts. So we have the theme, then we do the concepts. And the concept is, what do you want to actually make? What do you want to make? So in this example, well, we want to make a green screen ad using girl math, or why math makes sense to buy this powder, okay? Then once you have the concept, which is what you want to make, then you can come up with the angle. And the angle is from what point of view, what perspective, or what approach are you making this ad? So the point of view is a mom who works out 5 times a week, and this powder is the only thing getting rid of her belly bloat or belly fat, and this powder is actually saving her money by buying it. And then the hook, which is actually what gets attention, is what you put in the ad, which is getting rid of mom belly saves me $300 a month. The reason it's important to know these things is a lot of people use these interchangeably, and that's actually not true. Is each one is a linear progression in your thinking process to come up with a very strong, cohesive ad, concept, angle, and hook. And all of that fuels into what you're actually going to make. So by knowing this difference, it then allows you to actually have fundamentally sound creative. That's what we're trying to create. Is creative that's fundamentally sound, is based off of an intention, a why, research, and principles that convert. That is what it's all about. Okay, now that's number 3. Number 4 is make diverse ad formats. For example, this is important, especially now where consumers are getting so used to ads and their attention spans are constantly ever getting shorter, is if all of your creative looks the same, it's going to drown out noise. For example, here's one of the brands that we manage at the moment is a hair care brand. All of these ads are all different. That's what we call diversity, is we have different formats. We may have a static, an image, a GIF, a carousel, all the different types of ad formats, and the creative is drastically different as well. The reason why is because once a consumer sees something and they see something that looks just like it, it then becomes noise. But if you can find different ways, perspectives, visuals of delivering that same message, or in this case, different concepts, angles, and hooks of delivering that message, it'll then allow you to keep their attention. That's what we're trying to do with diversity, is keep their attention. But also, Meta is getting so good that it even knows who are the type of people that are going to actually engage with a static, a video, a GIF. And so by actually casting a broad net, you allow Meta more freedom to deliver your product and your brand to people who are going to more than likely actually pay attention to it. So that's why creative diversity is a big deal. So that's number 4. Creative diversity in your creative testing is be thinking about how can I take the same message but deliver it in different ad formats, but also in drastically different creative types, and you'll find that your performance actually drastically improves. My partner D was actually speaking at a Meta event just 3 weeks ago. It was a Meta exclusive event, and their engineers were talking about this exact thing, how creative diversity is more and more critical they're finding for a brand's performance. Then let's get into the fun part. How do you structure the creative testing? So I'm going to show you exactly how we structure it. On our team, there's one of 2 structures our team of 15 pods use for their creative testing. And I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of both, because one way may not always be the right one way for every brand, but these 2 cover a majority of cases. Okay, so this is the first way that we creative test, is we'll creative test with a separate campaign. So we call it an ABO, which is ad set budget optimization. So that's a technical term. Some of you guys who are maybe new at this and there's different reasons of doing this, is this particular can structure is what we call a graduation framework. Where in a separate campaign, we use that as an engine that's constantly testing creatives. And then when we find one that works, we graduate to a scaling campaign. Now, why do we do this way? For this particular structure is we do it because we want to have more control of where the budget is going. And also we want the highest amount of our budget to always be going towards ads that are proven already to convert at our targets. And so we can control that budget. So typically with accounts like this, where 80% or more of our budget is going to the scaling campaign, because if you have too much budget going to only testing, what you're going to do is you're going to find your performance really sucks because you're spending so much time on ads that aren't proven to work. So how this works is we have one campaign, which is ABO. We have ad sets, and we only do broad targeting for all of our brands. That's a whole other video. I can explain why we do that. It's actually what Meta recommends. The engineers of Meta do it this way. There's less volatility and a scale is easier. So that's a quick summary. And then what we do is inside of each ad set is we have our batches. So for example, that could be last week, our batches on girl math concepts. And there's different creative variations, creative diversity, even within inside that ad group. And typically they have 3 to 5 ads. Now, the pro of doing this way is it gives you higher budgets. It's good for higher budgets. Gives you more budget control. So if you feel like you want the budget control, then this option allows you to do that easily. It also makes things very cleaner and more organized. That's also a big part, in our opinion, of scaling is use the ad account, keep it very simple. Now there's another structure that's also simple, but there's a con to it. And it just gives you more control in how much money is going to the test. You probably felt this before where you launched some ads, felt frustrated that Facebook wasn't feeding out money to different ad sets to actually properly test it. Now there's different theories on why that happens, but if you want that control, this is a great alternative. And that's why our team likes to use this framework. So what happens is you test it inside of this testing campaign ABO. When it meets certain criteria, which I'll share with you how we decide that with our team. Once it meets this criteria, we then graduate that winning ad to the scaling campaign, which is one CBO, which is campaign budget optimization, one ad set, which is all broad, and then just winning ads inside of that ad set all times. So what that means is we're confident that 80% of our budget every single day is going towards ads that we know for sure have proven to be winners. And that's what helps our accounts to be highly stable. Now, the other campaign structure of how we test is even more consolidated. And this is our single test and scaling campaign, where we have one CBO, I zoomed in a little bit, where we have one CBO campaign, again, which is a campaign budget optimization objective. And then we have ad sets. We have a scaling ad set and then sub ad sets where we are testing. And this is where our creative tests happen. So the graduation framework is similar, where we have an ad set that we use for testing, and that's where each batch we're testing. And then the concepts inside of that batch. When one is proven to be a winner, we graduate that to the winner ad set. So similar concept. The good pros about this one, it's good for low budgets. You can also do high budgets too. There's just less things in the ad account, which is really helpful. Another pro is much tighter correlation that you can spot of, I launched this new ad set. How does that affect my gross Shopify sales or whatever e-commerce platform you use? Another pro is you give Meta more control. Now, a big theory here that's quite popular is that Meta knows how to spend budget better than humans. That's the theory. And so when Meta is delivering budget behind something, it means it knows something that you don't. And when it doesn't feed budget behind something, that again, it knows something that you don't. So that's kind of the theory. We've tested it. There is some probability, there's some importance to that. Also, a big pro is more consolidation, and it's just more efficient too. And that's a lot of pros for this campaign structure. We have people on our team that run this as well. Keeps things very tight, it's very consolidated. The con is you get less control on how budget is spent in creative testing. Now, if you align more with that theory where if Facebook is putting budget behind an ad, it's because it knows something that it's adding to the funnel and the buying experience of people who see it. And then another con is often what happens is you'll find that Meta doesn't even serve out certain ads that you have made, but that's kind of where you have to buy into that theory. And there is some validation with that theory. So that is how we structure it. Now, just to kind of show you the spend receipts of what it looks like in real life. So here is a actual client of ours using the double campaign, which is this core scaling and core testing. As you can see here, we actually have two campaigns. One is an ABO and one is a CBO. Then inside the testing ad sets, so this is the testing ad sets I'm showing you guys, is we have the different ad sets. Now they were testing each different batch test. These were all different batch tests. So this was one creative test, one creative test, one creative test, one creative test. And then based off certain rules that determine it's a winner, they keep running, which I'll share those rules with you guys in a moment. And then here's actually inside one of those ad sets. Like I said, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 creatives inside of an ad set. One thing I want to point out, again, creative diversity, is even just by looking at the images here in this little preview, you can already see that they're different. We have static, video. And the reason we do that is because each batch test, we want to go into that test with the intentionality of making it creative diverse. Now let me show you the examples of the single campaign. So here we have one core campaign. It's a CBO. Then inside that, we have the different ad sets, okay? And these different ad sets, again, all are tests. One of these is the control scaling, and the other ones are the testing. And then inside of each of those is we have our creatives, typically 3 to 5. And again, you can also see that these are all quite diverse as well. So how it's set up is simple. The hard part for you is going to be making the creatives and then also adapting how you make decisions, which I'm going to share next. And that is, what rules do we follow when we're creative testing? And this is the secret where a lot of people go wrong, is because they don't have hard and fast rules of how they make decisions. They do it based off emotion, gut reaction, and a lot of guessing, which is really scary. I'm going to show you how we do it based off hard and fast rules, and you can do it too. Here it is. Okay, so first is when we set up these creative tests, is we set up certain budgets based off certain rules. So the first one is typically as a baseline, we recommend starting at $50 a day. Now, there are some variables to that. If you have a really high AOV or a low AOV, honestly, in my opinion, after we're doing over $100 million in spend between our teams, we actually quit counting because that's pointless after that point, is there is no importance based off the starting budget. If anyone says that, they're wrong. But a couple of rules that you can live by is the starting budget can be at least 1 times your cost per acquisition or your target cost per acquisition. We call that CPA. So if you have CPA targets of over $50, we'd recommend putting the daily budget to at least starting at what that target CPA is. So let's say you sell a $200 product and your target CPA is $75. Then the starting budget of that will be $75 a day. So that means every day you should see at least a sale from it, and we'll go into that in a second. Or if you have a really low AOV product, like sub $16, do a 3 times your target CPA for that day. So these are the kind of rules our team live by. Either they start at $50 a day, or if they have really high AOVs or low AOVs, they change the daily starting budget based off those targets. Now the fun part, let's get nerdy. How do we and how should you make creative testing decisions? And these are rules that I encourage you to, every brand you work on, whether you're a freelancer, an agency, or a brand, document these for every single account that you work on, because it is going to change. So our rules of how we work with is based off, again, target CPAs. So if you've spent 1 times your CPA and you haven't had any purchases yet, but your outbound click is still in line with your evergreen average, evergreen meaning ads or campaigns that are scaling or that have held constant. And if your outbound click, and that's what that stands for, is within that range, keep it on. As sometimes you can get more incremental purchases over time as Facebook learns. If you have spent 2 times your target CPA, so again, let's say you sell a $100 product and your target CPA is, I want to acquire a customer for $30. Now, if you spent $60 without any purchases, that means you need to kill it. Okay, so if you spent over 2 times your CPA with no purchases, kill that creative test. If you spent 3 times your target CPA, so using that example I gave you, if you spent $90 and maybe you've had a purchase or 2 purchases, but it's not within 25% of your target, kill it. So these are our kill rules. So in this example, if your target is $35, then that means you have to be getting purchases for around $43 to keep it on. Otherwise, you need to kill it. Because if it hasn't converted within your target at that point, we've actually done statistical correlation on this. More than likely, it's not going to happen. If you spent 4 times the target CPA in this creative test, and like before, it's not within 25% of your KPIs, kill it. So all throughout here, you would have killed this reading creative if it had no purchases after 2 times. But if it's at 3 and 4 times your target and spend, and you're within 25%, keep it on, because you may find that it starts to normalize and you start to get incremental cheaper traffic and cheaper costs. So that's why we keep it on. And then lastly, if you spent 5 times your target CPA, so again, using the example of $30 I gave, if you have spent $150 and it's still not within a 25% window of your target, which would be $43 in this example, you need to kill it. So those are the rules that we follow. Now, before you make a decision, there's two more things my team looks at on deciding if this ad is a winner. We actually look at attribution. So we look at click versus view through attribution. Now, if you don't know what that is, feel free to Google it. If you want a video about that, let me know in the comments. So view and click attribution this is a big deal. If you're getting a lot of view attribution, it tends to mean that Meta is delivering it to people who are already bottom of funnel. They've already visited your website. They already kind of know who you are. But click attribution means they're actually taking an action, which means there's a lot more incrementality on that. So before we make a decision, we actually look at the attribution. So if more than 50% of the purchasing is coming through view through only, don't declare it a winner yet. Because what that means is, yes, Meta may be showing it to people, but the fact that they're not clicking on it tells you it may not be an ad that actually drives incrementality when you do it at scale. So we are very careful on this, on looking at that before we graduate a winner. And the last one is, if your outbound click costs are 50% higher than the typical normal average that you see on other scaling ads, just be careful there. Continue to monitor. I leave it on as long as it's still hitting KPI. The reason for that is at scale, if it doesn't normalize, it may actually end up not working anyways. So that's a big reason for that. Now, if you don't know how to find your click attribution and view through attribution, is you can go to here, find the three lines, compare attribution settings, and then we do 1 day view, 1 day click, and 7 day click, and Meta will actually compare those, and you can actually check to see what percentage of your purchases are coming from view through versus click. All right, that is how we creative test right now and going into 2024. Like I said, we have done $100 million in spend. We know how to do this, and we know how to do it very well scientifically. If you want to work with us, in the comments below is a Calendly link. You can schedule a time with me, or if you just want to jam, that's okay too. Best of luck to you, and subscribe and keep watching.